Hi, my name is Riley Allen. This is my review of Season 1, Episode 1 of Trollhunters, Tales of Arcadia, Becoming Part 1. We start the episode off with this epic fight between the troll hunter Kanjigar and his arch nemesis, basically Bular. They are both trolls, and the sunlight's coming up. And the sunlight is basically as detrimental to them as vampires. I think it's vampires. So, they're getting kind of turned to stone, and that's what happens when they get sunlight. They turn to stone. So they're getting sun on them, and they're turning to stone, but they're still fighting, duking it out like they've been doing for, I think the last few hundred years. And then Bular gets the upper hand because he's trying to get the amulet of Merlin, which is the amulet the troll hunter wields, so he can use. We later find out he wants it so he can restore Killahead Bridge. Not in this episode. We don't find it in this episode, but we find it later on in the season that he wants this to restore Killahead Bridge and, bring about his father. We're not told it's his father in this episode either. He's just mentioned his master as his master. Kanjigar decides to sacrifice himself, going out like a complete and utter badass. Just, crossing his arms to his chest and falling down in the sunlight, smashing into the concrete of the canal so Bular can't get the amulet. But also, side note, how the fuck did Bular even live? The sun was coming up pretty damn fast there. The only shade was under that damn bridge, so, was there just some minion waiting on the side with a blanket? Alright, Mr. Bular, here's your little blankie. Here's your little blankie, or here's your little umbrella. Yeah, here's your umbrella. I feel like after doing this hundreds of years, both Bular and Kanjigar would be smart enough not to fight each other at the break of dawn. I guess it might have been dark enough for Bular to haul ass and still live, but I'm calling it cap. Then we meet the main character of this series, James Lake Jr. We find out he's a pretty good chef, apparently. He's making food for him, his mom, and his best bud, Toby. He and his friend, Toby, haul it to school. They're late, so they take the canal. Coincidence? There they find the amulet, or the amulet basically finds them and starts calling Jim's name. James Lake. James Lake. And they decide to investigate. I'm sorry, if if a voice just starts calling my name, I'm booking it. Anyway, at this point, Toby's thinking he's about to be the next contestant on some type of prank show. Alright, where are you in the bushes? Come on out. They eventually, make it to school, and they're in class, and Jimmy over here, Jims is just staring at this girl named Claire, and he kind of gets called out for not paying attention, and by the teacher, Mr. Strickler, and he's like, "Do you agree with the tactics, Jim?" And Jim's like, "Yeah, which tactics? The winning ones?" So, Strickler asked Jim to stay after class, and basically tells him he's worried about him, he fell asleep in class and didn't pay attention after that. And he sets up basically a parent-teacher conference with Jim's mom. Also, he drops a line, "If you fancy Miss Nunez, you'd have better luck talking to than staring at." Then we, cut to gym class, and Jim tries to do just that. He fumbles it a bit, speaking in Spanish like a dumbass. But, Claire's a bit desperate at this point, she's in the play for Romeo and Juliet, and no boys are auditioning. She's like, "Alright, you want to audition for Romeo and Juliet?" And Toby's like, "Yeah, you should totally do it. I mean, you're the one that says you want to do adventure." And at this point, Jim's kind of thinking he's getting stalked, and I think it's Blinky and Arg, but how's Blinky in the school during the daylight again? How's he being stalked? Anyway, he gets home. His mom's a doctor, so, she's going to work. Weird hours. He hears noises in the basement. He's like, them damn raccoons. It's not a raccoon. It's Arg and Blinky. Side note, Jim is voiced by the late Anton Yelchin, I think his name is. And I still remember vividly the first time I watched this, I said, holy shit, that's Clumsy. Because Anton Yelchin also voiced Clumsy Smurf in the original live-action Smurf movie. So I was like, holy shit, that's Clumsy. And I think Arg and Blinky are just kind of, oblivious to the nature of humans over here. So they're like, this screaming he's doing must be some type of greeting. Right back at him. So, Jim, reasonably passes out. He's seeing these monsters, and he quite reasonably, in my opinion, passes the fuck out. He wakes up, and he's calling his best friend Toby, who's, for some, he's at the dentist. Side note, Toby mentioned that his orthodontist says that he's pretty close to being done with braces. Only 4 more years. How long has he had the braces on if 4 more years is close? He either needs to just cut his losses and go to dentures or get himself a new orthodontist. So Jim calls Toby, but he's at the dentist, so he's not much help. Then he goes to Mr. Strickler, and he's like, yeah, these guys, these trainers. And Strickler's like, train? He's suspicious. And, Jim's like, oh yeah, they're chess trainers. And Strickler's like, I know what this is. You're all worried, calls him Atlas and shit. I think. And then when Jim's walking out, Strickler catches the amulet sticking out of his bag. And his face looked like he done shit himself, like, oh. Then we find out, he's working with Bular. And he's like, I know exactly where it is. Brings him to Jim's house, where they watch Jim basically have this show's version of, it's morphin' time! He reads the incantation on the amulet and says, for the glory of Merlin, daylight is mine to command. And, he's got armor, he's got a sword, but, I'm noticing something. Kanjigar had a helmet, I'm pretty sure. Jim doesn't have a helmet. Anywho, that's how the episode ends, and we see Strickler's eyes glowing yellow, showing he's not fully human. Oops. That's something. Overall, this is a really good setup episode. It kind of tells us everything we need to know in this little first part. The trolls explained what the troll hunter basically was, kind of a little bit. We got the main characters, Jim, Toby. We got, the main villain, Bular. We got the main love interest at this point, Claire, We got all the little characters. We got all the little... Also, Steve. He's this bully, who Jim and Toby stand up to save this nerdy kid, Eli. And Steve schedules an ass-whooping appointment for Friday with Jim. And again, oh my god, this is another one where it's just so jarring. He's voiced by Steven Yeun. The dude from The Walking Dead, Glenn. I'm like, oh my god, that's Glenn. overall, I'm going to give this episode a 9 out of 10. Thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.